Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Spider-Verse Retrospectives. So we've already gotten through one half of the Spider-Zero era, so I think it's time to look at the second half, and of course that consists of another miniseries, one that is only 5 issues long in comparison to the 6 issues of Spider-Verse, but ultimately it's still one that qualifies as it does kind of include a bit of, well, Spider-Verse related shenanigans. And of course, if you watched my finale to the Spider-Verse miniseries, then you probably know what the focus of this one is, as ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be diving headfirst into the Gwenverse. Yep! For the second miniseries, we're going to be looking at a Spider-Gwen focused storyline, Gwenverse. Now, when this miniseries was first announced, you can bet your ass that I was excited. As I mentioned, when it comes to Spider-Verse, I feel like I have to collect every single thing related to it. And as I've hopefully showcased with these vlogs, essentially, as long as the storyline has the verse title in it, then I considered it a part of Spider-Verse. After all, I collected everything that was there, that was associated with the Venomverse storyline, and likewise, Spider-Geddon, which was a direct sequel to Spider-Verse, I happily collected as well. So basically, the idea of having a storyline that continued further showcasing more of Spider-Gwen by essentially just showcasing her teaming up with alternate versions of herself that became different superheroes, I kind of thought, I still want to give this a chance. After all, it still kind of fits into the Spider-Verse purview, right? So what's the harm? After all, it's just different versions of Gwen teaming up this time around. What could possibly go wrong with that? This should still be as fun as any other Spider-Verse related storyline, right? Okay, I'm just gonna say this right now. I don't completely hate this story, but there are things about it that bug me, and we'll get to why when we actually get into the miniseries itself. And as always, if we want to look through this miniseries, well, we gotta look at it issue by issue. So to kick things off, we're going to be starting these vlogs with, well, Spider-Gwen, Gwenverse number 1. And that issue actually begins on Earth 65, the home of Spider-Gwen, as we see her just, doing her own thing. Basically just, superheroing it up. She's at a bodega where she stops a supervillain called the She-Bodega Bandit, who's meant to be a female counterpart to an equally as pathetic supervillain called the Bodega Bandit, and basically she ends up webbing the lady up and goes on her way with her snacks, but the whole thing was being filmed and has just gone viral. As such, her antics as Spider-Gwen here kind of start getting her a bit in trouble with the people in her personal life, because the thing is, part of the reason she was at the bodega was because she was getting an energy drink for a show that she and the Mary Janes were performing for this rich girl's birthday party, and basically because she was kicking the She-Bodega Bandit's ass, she wasted so much time that she wasn't able to make it back in time for the show. Something that Mary Jane isn't exactly okay with, because she feels that her friend Gwen is prioritizing the whole superhero side of her identity rather than, trying to keep their friendship going. And so that kind of weighs down on Gwen's mind something fierce. And it's not made any better when she manages to make it home to her dad, who also saw the video, but he actually compliments Gwen and says that was some fun superheroing she did there, almost as if she had practice. At which point he asks Gwen a question. Did you practice over there? And yeah, remember back at the end of the Spider-Gwen tie-ins to Spider-Geddon, where Gwen wound up gaining a necklace that allowed her to jump between parallel universes? Yeah, in the storylines that followed after that, essentially Gwen started spending a lot more time in the main Marvel universe, which again, I think that was part of the meta reason why they changed her name to Ghost Spider, because again, they already had a Spider-Woman running around, they didn't want to get the names confused, but I still find that to be BS. After all, Miles Morales' superhero alias is still Spider-Man, and nobody gets confused about that. So why couldn't they just, in universe, still call Spider-Gwen, well, Spider-Gwen? I understand that she couldn't use that name in the Marvel Universe, because that would be, like, advertising who she is, but hey, I would still think that maybe Ghost Spider is not a good one. But that's a reopening old wound, so I'm just going to drop that for now. But point is, she had basically as part of her part of her other solo series, she was actually attending college courses in the main Marvel universe and, well, doing some superheroing on the side, which George Stacy isn't exactly okay with, because in comparison to their Earth, the main Marvel Universe is a lot bigger when it comes to their crises. And basically, in his own words, in the main Marvel Universe, essentially a little problem is much larger than a big problem on Earth 65. And so George just does not want his daughter getting hurt. However, Gwen counters that she does what she does because being a superhero over there, she feels like she belongs. There are other spider people like her. That world's Peter Parker, Miles, Jessica Drew, all those other spider people are there, and she likes hanging out with them, making them feel a part. It makes her feel cool. Which, again, does not exactly win her brownie points with her dad because he talks about, because this essentially makes him say, you're more concerned, that she's essentially being more concerned with everybody else's hero, but not his. Because, again, at the end of the day, she still worries about his daughter, and he just doesn't want to he just does not want her getting hurt, which just adds more guilt on Gwen's shoulders. As such, Gwen ends up just going to her room and then just plops onto the bed, but she decides that with all this going on, she just kind of wants a little bit of an escape. As such, she ends up suiting back up into her Spidey jammies as she ends up taking her necklace and opens a portal, hopefully to Earth 616. Just to, go around swinging and kicking ass and minding her own business. Though even she admits that this will be a temporary solution, as the one person she wants to get away with from right now is going to end up going with her, i.e. herself. However, as that's going on, we end up cutting to the villain of our little comic, as the comic jumps ahead to the end of time. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. Basically, in the far off distant future, time is unraveling due to all this quantum multiversal shenanigans that's been going on across the Marvel Comics line, and so basically the space-time continuum is just going right down the drain. And so here at the end of time, basically everybody's just partying it up, and the one who's hosting the party is a woman by the name of Finale, the ultimate artist, and she's the ultimate artist because she's the last artist, and her fans just can't get enough of her. They go to all her concerts, they have fun, party it up, get snacks. It's just a good time. Basically, just everyone has a good time, and basically to transmit their emotions and joy to Finale, they have little things attached to the sides of their heads called emoters, that basically whenever Finale does something, the emoters transmit their emotions directly to her to see, and basically, like I said, it lets her know if they're enjoying things or not. And basically, she's just, like I said, she's just here to throw the ultimate party, the final bash before everyone dies. So hey, if the world's ending anyway, might as well go out in style. And one of the ways she goes out in style is by broadcasting the penultimate meme. Which, yeah, the penultimate meme is, it's basically just that meme where, the woman's yelling at the cat, but the cat's just minding his own business at a dinner table. And the captions for this one are... Hold on, I want to be sure I get it right, so I'm actually going to read right from the comic. The caption from the meme is... That moment when you realize the last part of friend is end. And the star of this cat meme is actually a cat that two particular fans are holding. One that apparently can talk. And basically, while she can talk, she's just like any other cat, apathetic to anything that doesn't really concern her. So yeah, even when her owners are like, look at that! It's like, look at that! Look at that! Hold on, I gotta remember what the cat's name is. I think her name was... Irma? What was it? What was it? Holy crap! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Irma. It is. Yeah, the cat's name is Irma. Basically, while Irma's owners are like, "Oh, look at that! You're the penultimate meme." She's like, "Meh." But ultimately, that's not what Finale is here for. For you see, if time is coming to an end, well, that means everyone's going down the crapper. Well, Finale wants to make sure that her legacy continues to live on, as she plans to be the final meme. And to be the final meme, she's found a way to essentially make herself immortal. I say immortal in air quotes because while she herself will die, her image will live on across time. And that's where her villainous plot comes in. Basically, she has constructed a device called the Finalizer. And what the Finalizer will do is that when she is bathed in its glorious light, it'll essentially reincarnate Finale across history. But it won't be like regular reincarnation. It's not like that the reincarnations of her are all going to be exact copies of her. No. In reality, these 5 incarnations all have a baseline to them. Specifically, the baseline of big name Marvel superheroes, specifically Thor, Captain America, Wolverine, Iron Man, and Captain Marvel. Basically, if Finale is bathed in the light of the Finalizer, she will be reborn in different times and places across history and take on the mantles of those heroes, essentially cementing her status as the ultimate meme as she'll be repeated across history. But of course, the Finalizer needs a few remaining components, which is where we end up seeing her entourage for this comic. In this case, a supervillain group known as, again, I'm sorry, I keep going back to the comic on this, a supervillain group by the name of the Terminal Six. Basically, a group of 6 supervillains whose universes also kind of went down the crapper, and who Finale just pulled out of each of their worlds and pretty much told them, you want to live, you work for me. And basically, she had each member of the Terminal Six go across time and space and gather specific components that she could add to the Finalizer to, make it whole and actually reincarnate her image. However, one of the Terminal Six is missing, and so when Finale pulls the leader of the Terminal Six, a version of Doc Ock by the name of Dr. Cephalopod, to the side and asking what the hell's going on, well, Dr. Cephalopod reveals that the 6th member of the Six is dead. Basically, the component he was supposed to get was supposed to be a super intelligent computer owned by Cable, who you may remember from such films like Deadpool 2. And put simply, Cable did not want his computer going anywhere, so he wound up just killing him. As such, while the remaining 5 members of the Terminal Six do still have all the other components, without this computer, Dr. Cephalopod thinks it might be a bad idea to run the Finalizer, as basically without the computer acting as the base, without the computer's operating system, things could get wonky very fast and things could go very wrong. But Finale pretty much just goes, fuck that. Yeah, they may be missing this one component, but they have most of them here, so why not just do it anyway? But of course, there's still one problem. This machine requires a lot of power just to work. How fortunate, then, that Finale has so many fans with so many devices attached to their heads that are fueling all of their emotions to her. And yeah, as all of Finale's fans are partying it up, they start noticing that their emotors start feeling a little wonky and they start feeling strange. And that's because Finale has tweaked their emotors so that they're now draining out the life force of all of the fans and converting it into a power source for the Finalizer. And sure enough, when Finale announces this, all of her fans start freaking out and try to rip the things off, but it's too little too late, as Finale just flips a metaphorical switch, and all of them are drained of their life force, pretty much turning all of her fans into statues. Save Irma, as she's a cat and didn't have that, but naturally, Irma's a little freaked out by the fact that her owners are now dead, lifeless husks. But ultimately, this does do exactly what Finale wanted. This ends up providing all the excess power that was needed to turn on the Finalizer, and so Dr. Cephalopod pretty much just tells Finale to stand in the light of the Finalizer and have her shadow be extended across time and space, so that she'll be reincarnated. Unfortunately for Finale, though, it's at this moment, back in the present day on Earth 65, when Gwen decides to jump to Earth 616. And so as she's in between universes and just kind of briefly enjoys the feeling of weightlessness, it turns out Finale's shadow ends up zapping Gwen. As we learn later in the comic, it turns out Gwen's necklace, the thing that she used across time and space, somewhat intercepted the blast. After all, the necklace itself is meant to be like a focal point in interdimensional travel that's specifically key to Gwen Stacy's DNA. And so basically, when Finale's shadow started extending across time and space, well, it came into contact with the necklace, and as a result, she got blasted by the Finalizer instead of Finale. And upon being hit by the Finalizer, Gwen herself starts kind of getting woozy, as basically for her, it was like a big zap, and as a result, she starts literally just falling into nothingness in between time and space. However, the Savior does come to her rescue, as well. In enters Spider-Zero, who's seen in a parallel universe to know that Gwen Stacy and falling is a bad combination. And funny thing, Gwen actually knows who Spider-Zero is, as basically, after the events of the previous Spider-Verse miniseries, Miles did share his adventures with Gwen, so she's familiar with Spider-Zero and her whole deal. As such, however, while Spider-Zero has saved Gwen, Gwen herself is still a little disoriented from from what happened to her. Hold on a second. Sorry about that, felt a coughing fit coming on. But either way, yeah, Gwen's still disoriented after being blasted like that. And so, while Spider-Zero saved her, she thinks maybe it's better if she go back to her home universe and, get some rest. However, upon Spider-Zero depositing Spider-Gwen on Earth-65, they find the world to be a very different place, as it looks a lot more technologically advanced. There are statues all over the place. There are flying cars. The buildings look more techy and more techy and strange. And yeah, the place just does not resemble New York. Does not resemble present-day New York at all. As such, at first, Gwen thinks that Spider-Zero just dropped her in the wrong universe, but no. Spider-Zero does confirm through the strands of the Web of Life and Destiny that this is Earth-65, but there's something off about it. There seems to be certain the timeline of events in this world seems to have strayed a little. And on top of that, it's not just the aesthetics of the world that have changed, it's the people too. As Gwen ends up running into Mary Jane, and basically in this new altered present, well, nobody knows that Spider-Woman and Gwen Stacy are one of the same, or Gwen Stacy and Ghost Spider, but I still refuse to call her by the name, so we're sticking with Spider-Woman. But either way, they don't know that the Spider-themed superhero and Gwen Stacy are one and the same, and that also extends to Mary Jane, who, upon seeing her best friend Gwen Stacy is actually Spider-Woman, she's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it's you! You're so brave! I can't believe this! Hey, do you think you can put your mask back on while we're hugging? That way I'm hugging Gwen and Spider-Woman." Like, it's clear that something is a little off, especially since, like I said earlier, Mary Jane was not really happy with Gwen continuing being Spider-Woman, considering how frayed their relationship was getting. However, this little touching reunion is brought to a close as a giant robot comes in and tells Gwen that she's under arrest for violating the Marvel laws, so to speak. As such, with everything going wonky, Spider-Zero decides that they have to get out of there, so she grabs Gwen and swings away, and basically while Mary Jane just starts freaking out with the robot saying, "Oh, don't arrest me, my family doesn't know anything about, my family would be ruined by this, I can tell you more information about Spider-Woman." Basically the robotic officer just tells MJ to go home and that he'll take care of this. In the meantime, though, back with Gwen and Spider-Zero, we see Spider-Zero continuing to try and examine what exactly has happened to Earth-65 to result in this altered present, but simply, it has to do with Gwen, as somehow the fate of her world has now been more tied to her, and as she looks along the lifeline of this reality, it seems to break off in 5 points, which normally would lead to alternate reality, which mean that these lead to like parallel worlds, but no. These points lead to different points in Gwen's timeline. And yes, like I said, these points all correspond to where the different versions of Gwen are located, because, yeah, since Gwen was the one that was hit by the finalizer rather than finale, it's her image that's being reincarnated across time in the image of different superheroes. And sure enough, we get confirmation of that, as while Spider-Zero is examining Gwen's individual thread, we see the thread go to like a series of books in the location that they're hiding at, and sure enough, these books do contain keys as to where Gwen's other selves are. With one of them leading to a book of Norse mythology. And when Spider-Zero goes to investigate, they find one of Gwen's other selves, specifically Thor-Gwen, as she's called. When even Gwen looks at her as Guardian counterpart, she's like, that name just does not flow off the tongue. But either way, they now at least have an idea of what's causing all of this. However, before the pair of spiders can investigate this, Gwen's spider sense goes off, and sure enough, the robotic officer from earlier breaks in and wants to arrest Gwen. As such, with her strength back, Gwen decides that she really wants to hit something and tries to engage the robotic officer in combat, but the robotic officer just easily throws her into a wall, and shows that he knows her, as he calls her Gwendolyn. And when Gwen hears that, she quickly realizes who the robotic officer is, as the robotic officer says that she's breaking the Marvel laws, and that he'll bring her in himself, so that she doesn't hurt anyone else. And his helmet opens up, and we see that the man inside the suit is Captain George Stacy. Yep, in this alternate reality, he's still a police officer. He did not quit his job like in the original Earth 65 timeline. And unfortunately, he's very much ready to arrest his daughter. Whereas in the original timeline, he let his daughter go upon learning she was Spider-Woman and basically tried to come to an understanding with her. Here, nope, not the case. Not the case at all. As Gwen herself even muses, as Gwen herself muses, he's more concerned with what Gwen could do to other people rather than her own safety. As such, with Gwen realizing this, she ends up disarming her father, quite literally in this case, as she rips off the robot arm that was holding her in place. And since she still doesn't want to fight her dad, she just knocks him aside and leaves him there as she and Spider-Zero decide they have to go and fix this. And while her dad tries to stop her by trying to shoot a laser at them, ultimately the pair of spiders are able to get through the portal and escape Earth 65, escape from the present day. As such, since Spider-Zero really has no idea what's going on, she believes that the next course of action needs to be, well, collecting all the different versions of Gwen from across time and space. Because after all, if all this is tied to Gwen, then maybe they can find a way to lessen it if they just remove the pieces that alter time in the first place. And so as a result, that means Gwen's got to find her other selves and bring them all together to at the very least attempt to try and shift her reality back into place. And that's However, Spider-Zero herself says that she cannot go because of the uncertainty connected to all this, so basically Gwen's gotta do a solo mission, though she still can contact Spider-Zero via the Spider Totems. Repeating myself, Spider-Zero ends up sending Gwen back in time, specifically to the year, I think, 800 CE. Again, let me confirm. It is, 800 CE, specifically in Norway. And basically, this is where one of the first skeins of the thread is pointing them towards. And so basically, it's Gwen's job to go in there and investigate and see what version of her is there. But yeah, the instant the townspeople see Gwen without her mask on, they all start calling her Thor. So yeah, it does confirm the version of Gwen that's here is in fact the version that is Thor. As such, Gwen ends up following the townspeople to a church, and sure enough, she sees her Asgardian counterpart there, just, reveling in all the attention, proclaiming herself as the god of thunder, that all bow down before her, she will fulfill all commands, and yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Basically, she's just doing all the Thor stuff, which, funny little thing that I actually do appreciate here, the different versions of Gwen that we meet across time, while they're all meant to be Gwen herself reincarnated, they're not all exact copies of her either. Because, case in point, Thor Gwen's real name? It's Gwendolyn Janice. Not Gwen Stacy, Gwendolyn Janice. And part of the reason why she's doing the things she's doing right now, boasting like she is as Thor, because before she became Thor, she was just a simple farm girl that everybody ignored. And so basically, now that she knows that she is worthy of wielding the power of Thor, she's doing everything in her power to make sure that all eyes are on her. Which, yeah, Gwen herself even realizes that that's an aspect of herself that was taken out. As earlier in the comic, Mary Jane mentioned how Gwen was one of the founding members of the Mary Janes, and how she set up the band because she wanted attention. And essentially, Thor Gwen is that ideal personified. Either way, Gwen realizes that her Asgardian counterpart is kind of a jerk, especially when she shoos off a pilgrim woman who tried to make a picture of her, but she said that while you're talented, you didn't exactly capture my image, so go and try it again. And so, basically, as Gwen is sneaking around the rafters of the building they're in, eventually she decides that not enough is enough, as she swings in and manages to get Mjolnir out of Thor Gwen's hands, which, if the hammer is enchanted, then I can kind of buy that Spider-Gwen will be able to grab it, since she and Thor Gwen are technically the same person, so that would mean she's just as worthy as her Asgardian counterpart. So, yeah, basically everything is going off. So basically, she tells Spider-Gwen tells Thor Gwen that she needs to stop this because what she's doing will lead to greater ramifications down the line, as doing what she's doing right now is essentially confirming to these people that gods are real, and it's just opening Earth up to cosmic events later on. But Thor Gwen ain't taking no for an answer, because like I said, she was ignored before, so she's not giving this up now. And so she rushes in, manages to grab Mjolnir out of her spider-themed counterpart's hands, and then just knocks her right out of the building because, well, she's not just gonna lay down and accept defeat. As such, Gwen realizes that if she really wants Thor Gwen to listen, then she sadly kind of needs to get to the root of some problems because, well, it's still her, which means that she's going to kind of have to examine herself. In the meantime, at the end of time, Finale is wondering why the hell she hasn't been reincarnated yet. And sure enough, Dr. Cephalopod confirms to her that, the machine's energy got intercepted by Gwen's necklace, and basically all this happened because they didn't have this one component that Dr. Cephalopod said was a key component in doing all this, and that without it, things could get wonky. However, Finale is still not having this shit. She still wants to be reincarnated across history, and the fact that some random spider chick from some random universe is out there living all the lives that she wanted, it's not exactly sitting well with her. As such, she decides that, well, if I can't be the ultimate meme, then I'm not going to let her be it either. And as such, she ends up sending the remaining members of the Terminal 6 to just go to Earth 65 and kill every version of Gwen they can find, because after all, she believes that if she can eliminate all these different versions of Gwen, then maybe she can at least Finale can get her reincarnations back. However, because she's already lost faith in the Terminal 6 because they didn't get her the components, she thinks that they need a new 6th member. And fortunately, there is someone that might be able to help. And like with all the other members of the Terminal 6, she's from a universe that died as well, and, well, has nothing to lose. And so the comic ends as we see who exactly it is that Finale pulls out of the multiverse. And sure enough, I'm sorry, I gotta find the page It is this chick. A woman by the name of Nightbird, a sidekick to some superhero whose name I do not remember, and the Gwen Stacy of the Heroes Reborn universe, which I don't know that much about the Heroes Reborn universe, sadly. I want to learn more about it because it's one of those continuities that I am interested in, as it's essentially an alternate timeline where things are just different, so I do want to look more into it, but put simply, in the Heroes Reborn universe, Gwen Stacy was the sidekick to some other bird-themed superhero. She called herself Nightbird, and in the beginning, she was a good person, but then she got a good snoot of goblin gas, and it wound up flipping her switch from good to evil, and she wound up killing her, partner. So, yeah. So basically she'd be a perfect member of the Terminal 6, especially since she knows how Gwen thinks, and thus can easily predict and easily plan around her. So, yeah. That's lovely. But yeah, that's how the first issue ends. And my thoughts on it, it's pretty good. I'm going to say that. Here's the thing, though. Like I said at the beginning of this video, while I was excited for this book, there are aspects of it that do kind of annoy me a little. And sadly, one of those aspects is, well, the alternate Gwens. The only reason that this story is called Gwenverse is because it involves Spider-Gwen meeting and teaming up with different versions of herself who went on to become different superheroes. Kind of like that What If series, What If Miles Morales. Except whereas that series was very hit or miss, this series involves involves Gwen actively working alongside them and forming a little team of herself and different versions of her. That alone I thought would be a cool premise for a story. For me, though, the problem arises in the fact that, while from a basic standpoint, this story is similar to other such stories like Spider-Verse, it's not the same either. Keep in mind, even going with something like, say, Venomverse, the basic gimmick was always the same. The main universe version of a character meets and teams up with alternate versions of themselves from parallel universes. For Spider-Verse, for all the Spider-Verse storylines, we had whole teams of spider people coming together and fighting alongside each other to face a common threat. In the original Spider-Verse, it was the Inheritors. In Spider-Geddon, also the Inheritors. And then likewise, in the previous Spider-Verse miniseries that we just read, they all came together to help one of their own who was in danger. And then likewise, in Venomverse, it was a similar case. Venom joined up with all these other different Venomized heroes from alternate realities because all of them were in danger because of a common threat. In that case, the Poisons, who were actively hunting any symbiotic heroes they could across the multiverse and then consuming them to take their powers and grow stronger. But in the case of Gwenverse, what kind of makes this story lose points for me is the fact that we are not dealing with parallel universes. We're dealing with time-displaced copies. And as a result, rather than being able to, like, peek into different universes and seeing Gwen meeting different versions of herself and learning their lives and saying, okay, look, there's this big threat we gotta work together on, so come with me. So you need to come with me on this. The story, instead, is about trying to clean up a mess. In this case, because Finale turned on her finalizer and it zapped Gwen, Gwen herself has been reincarnated across her Earth's history. And as a result, the reason why she's gathering all these different versions of herself is not because there's a big grand threat that they all need to unite against isn't because there's some big grand threat that they all need to unite against. In this case, the only reason that Gwen is gathering her other selves is because they all are technically from her universe, and by virtue of being from her universe, they fucked up the timeline something fierce, to the point where Gwen's present day is practically unrecognizable. In this new present day, her father is a robotic police officer who wants to arrest Gwen because she's violating the Marvel laws, which in this case means that she shouldn't be a superhero. Where Mary Jane is subservient to the man, right? Whereas the Mary Jane that Gwen Stacy knew before formed an entire band to pretty much give the finger to the man. And now it's even more technologically, and as a result, she basically just wants to know what the heck is happening. And so, her gathering her other selves isn't a matter of, look, there's a big threat that we all need to team up against. She's gathering other selves because she's trying to minimize the damage to the timeline, which, yeah, it's easier said than done, because you have to remember that when Gwen arrived in 1800 CE, everybody there already knew who she was. They almost took her for her Asgardian counterpart and revered her just as much. And as a result, Gwen was able to track down Thor-Gwen and while she tried to get her to calm down, while she tried to take the hammer from her, explain, look, what you're doing, I understand what you're going through, but you need to let all this go because it's fucking up time and space. Thor-Gwen was like, fuck that, I just want this attention, and knocked her out. So yeah, minimizing the damage they do to history is going to be a lot easier said than done. Because here's the thing. It's hard to kind of forget about a lady who has a giant hammer that can summon lightning when she holds it aloft. So, you might want to rethink your plan just a smidge. But with that said, like I said, my whole point is this. It annoys me that instead of having Gwen needing to team up with all these different versions of herself who became different superheroes, it's just instead different reincarnations of herself across time, which, to be fair, we do briefly peek into all these different versions of Gwen's lives. We do see how they operate as these different superheroes and what led them to becoming the people they are today, for the most part. So, it still has a smidge of the essence of what I like when it comes to visiting parallel universes. It's just that it very much loses points for me because all the different versions of Gwen we're seeing are not there because, well, they happen to live in these universes and these other universes, and these are the circumstances they lived through. They're here because Gwen herself got hit by this magic machine from the future that reincarnated her across time as different superheroes. And so basically they just have to and so as a result, it's not dimensional travel, it's just time travel. So again, it has a bit of what I like about alternate realities and so forth by showcasing that these Gwens did have that, how they were reincarnated. It wasn't just like that they appeared in random points in history. It's not like one day in Norway and then in 1800 CE Thor-Gwen wasn't a thing and then suddenly bam, she just appeared out of nowhere. No, with how the reincarnation works, all of them were born at different points in time, and basically through their own means, all of them did eventually become the superheroes they were modeled after. Like, Thor-Gwen did start out like a peasant woman, but then she found Mjolnir, and utilizing it gave her the might and power to become Thor-Gwen. So they did have lives. And again, that still contains some of the essence of what I love when it comes to parallel universes. Because like I said when I complimented how Thor-Gwen's real name was Gwendolyn Janice instead of a variation of Gwen Stacy, that showcases that while she is meant to be a reincarnation of Spider-Gwen, she also isn't Spider-Gwen, and I can appreciate that because it helps show because that does have what I like when it comes that does have what I like when it comes to meeting different versions of yourself. That they can have similarities to you, but there is always going to be something different. And the differences are always what I find interesting. And I won't lie, meeting the different versions of Gwen so far that we're going to be seeing in this miniseries will still be cool. And even seeing Thor Gwen like this, I do like them, like, we do end up seeing Spider-Gwen's thought process when she sees her. And she looks at her and thinks, okay, yeah, I can't, this isn't just some random person, she is me. There's a lot of me in her, there's a lot of me that I see in her, it's just that this one aspect of her personality has been augmented, and I know which aspect of that and I know which aspect of her personality that is because I've seen that, because I've showcased that part myself. So I do at the very least like that. It does make me find it, I am still interested in the lives of these other Gwens, especially Thor Gwen, because I do still would like to know more about their lives and their history. It's just, again, it annoys me that rather than doing whole dimensional travel, you're doing time travel, which I don't hate time travel, it's cool, but the previous Spider-Verse events were literally multiverse-related stories. So the fact that this one isn't, it annoys me. And I'm not, and before you bring up, well, Nightbird's in there and she's an alternate version of Gwen Stacy, to that I say, fair enough, but she's one of the bad guys, and she's not. And while I do think it is kind of cool seeing Gwen duke it out with a version of herself who went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. At the same time, that's one alternate universe version of Gwen compared to these 5 others who are just versions of this who are just different versions of the same Gwen reincarnated across history. So, so yeah. While I don't totally hate the reincarnation thing, it does still kind of annoy me because, again, the verse events typically involve alternate realities, and the fact that this one doesn't does just kind of get under my skin a bit. So there's that. But with that said, the beginning of the story actually is pretty good. It establishes basically what Gwen's deal is in the beginning of the story, as we see her just trying to further come into her, as we see her still kind of grappling with the line between being Gwen Stacy and being Spider-Woman, which is some good stuff, as I do like the character drama we get from that, from seeing her friends get on her ass for prioritizing being Spider-Gwen over hanging out with them, to likewise going to her dad, who thinks that being Spider-Gwen the way he is putting her in more danger, so he thinks maybe she could rein it in a little, and she says, no, I want to keep doing this the way I am, and it just makes him sad because he's clearly worried, and he thinks she's not listening to him. And then basically add on the fact that Gwen's entire reality is now changed because of Finale's actions. That kind of adds a similar sense of guilt, because the last time Gwen saw her specific versions of her friends and family, they weren't on the good terms. Now here she is in a drastically altered timeline where things are not the way they're supposed to be, and yet when she sees the familiar faces, they're not the people that she knows. She meets this new timeline's version of Mary Jane, and she's basically a kiss-ass to the government. She meets this timeline's version of her dad, and he does not give a shit that his daughter's a superhero. He is more than, in fact, if anything, the fact that Gwen Stacy and Spider-Woman are one and the same makes him believe that, my only daughter broke these rules. Well, I'm sorry, I gotta bring you in. Basically, it's a very different reaction to how he reacted when he learned Spider-Woman and when Gwen Stacy are one and the same in Edge of Spider-Verse #2, which, yeah, I'll give credit to where it's due. The comic does do a few callbacks to that, because when Gwen and Spider-Zero leave this alternate timeline George Stacy for dead and say, let's just get out of here, he does briefly whisper, "Damn it, Gwen," before opening fire on her, which I think is a nice little reverse of what we saw in Edge of Spider-Verse #2, where George Stacy had his daughter in a similar situation, but he let her go because his love for her overrode his dedication to his duties. And then, so, again, I like that. It's a nice little callback. So there are some grand stakes, and basically, again, while it still annoys me about how the different versions of Gwen are instead placed throughout time rather than existing in their own parallel universes, I'll still give credit where it's due. I'm still intrigued about them. I like the way Spider-Zero actually talks about how her reality has been splintered off, as what led to this new reality's fate is tied to all the different versions of Gwen. And I like that as she's looking through them, the skeins of the web lead to these different books, which most likely each contain information on each version of Gwen across this new timeline. So, in that regard, I do think I do like that. I do think that that's pretty cool, and I do think that's really cool, and the way she describes it definitely makes it feel like there's more weight, and that this truly is kind of a serious problem that does need to be fixed when they actually can have more details surrounding it. And and ultimately, basically their only plan of attack at this point is just to try and find as many of these is just try and gather all these different Gwens and try and get them out of time before their changes become too permanent. So, again, there is some interesting stuff there, and there is some grand weight. It sets the stakes up perfectly, as the beginning of the story has Gwen at odds with these people, and now she's in a position where those people have essentially been wiped from existence and replaced, and, well, basically she has nothing left to lose here. She has to get her world back and put it back in its proper place, or else this will be her new reality. It's actually pretty sad. It's tragic, but at the same time, it gives you a goal to fight for, a goal to strive for. And seeing Gwen confront her Asgardian counterpart, who basically is just all grandiose and attention-seeking, I'll give credit. She did a great job. I think that was a great introduction. And likewise again, while it does annoy me that it's time travel we're dealing with this time instead of dimension travel, still kind of cool seeing Gwen musing about how similar Thor Gwen is to her. I like that. It's nice. And I'll also give credit where it's due. I'm actually liking Finale. She's fun. She's basically just to put it this simply, she's like if an influencer became a supervillain, and it's kind of awesome. It's kind of fun. I love it. Basically, her whole shtick is that she wants attention. She wants all eyes on her. She wants to be remembered forever. And so, likewise, her whole evil scheme was to literally reincarnate herself across time and space as different superheroes, because she thought by doing this, she'll live on forever. She'll be reincarnated in all these amazing heroes, so to speak, and blah, blah, blah. And ultimately, her only reason for hunting down all these different versions of Gwen is because she thinks that Spider-Gwen stole her spotlight. It's amazing, kind of stupid, but also what I would expect from a supervillain. So I'll give credit where it's due. I'm liking Finale. She's pretty good. I like her. So on the whole, I think issue 1 is actually a decent start to this miniseries. It sets the stakes rather well, gives us some good character drama that immediately lets you understand why Gwen that immediately gets you relating to Gwen, as the stakes that she's fighting for are not just for the stakes of her world, but for her personal relationships. You are drawn into how these alternate versions of Gwen change the timeline the way they are. It has some really good drama when you see this new timeline's versions of Gwen's family and friends. I like seeing Gwen meeting Thor Gwen and get Thor Gwen despite my annoyances, and likewise the Finale herself is, I think, a good villain, and I am interested in seeing what she does with the rest of the Terminal 6, which, yeah, I'm not going to get into every single member of the Terminal 6 right now. I'll get into them when they become important later in the story, but what I also like about the Terminal 6, all of them are actually variants on Spider-Man villains and characters, so I think that's still cool. But either way, as a first issue, it's still a decent outing. It sets the stakes rather well, it gives us good character drama that pulls us in, has some legitimately nice ideas, and while I'm still, honest to God, annoyed that we're not dealing with multiverse problems, but time travel problems, there's still enough there that you can find something to like. So on the whole, not a bad start. So yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope to see you on Saturday as we look at issue 2 and see how Gwen is able to gather the other versions of herself. So till then, I hope you have a good night and take care.